most important right now is that we are a DIR contract holder, and that includes for professional services and for some specific software products. So we are looking to take full advantage of that. So we hope this participation in this webinar, and we're actually going to be doing a series. This is the first of 4 webinars, each with a different topic related to SharePoint. You will all be invited to each of those if you have not been already. So we're looking forward to hopefully having everybody attend each one of them, but one is not dependent on the other. So with that being said, we'd like to first tell you who we are, but we are DataPoint Consultants. We are part of a company called DataBank, and I don't know if anybody of you are familiar with DataBank, but DataBank is a national company which provides imaging and document management solutions. We work with partners there such as Kodak, Fujitsu, Kofax, DataCap, to name a few. But we are a SharePoint consulting division of DataBank. We are strictly SharePoint. We work with the Microsoft technologies that focus us to help leverage your investment in SharePoint if you're looking at it, if you have it already. We've been DataBank, just to let you know, has been around since well over 25 years. And we are a division of them, and like I said, specifically the SharePoint. Our goal, excuse me, is basically to help you maximize your efficiencies within SharePoint. Management documents, records, web content, whatever you want to do on a single platform. I don't know if this is a big issue, but it seems like the biggest thing that we have found is that SharePoint, people have basically said that it's usually a lack of expertise within SharePoint which holds them back, and that's where we want to come in and leverage our experience and expertise. As you can see, we're a Microsoft Gold partner. We are a business critical SharePoint partner, and just to reiterate, being a Gold partner, that only happens to about 2% of Microsoft's partners, so we're very proud of that. We've got an extensive staff that delivers you know, significant experience in a very professional environment. We also work with a lot of third-party vendors. Those third-party vendors include companies like Nintex, AppPoint, Cosign, and what those do is allow SharePoint to take advantage of some of the enhancements that can make it a really, really powerful platform by having workflow, infrastructure management. You can add digital signatures. You can do things like have intelligent viewing of images. So we have expanded our base beyond just the professional services of SharePoint expertise to working with a lot of our partners and really trying to understand your business issues and how we can relate to them. We always work with Microsoft best practices, and those include things like making sure that they're beneficial in the capabilities of what we're trying to do or in the best choices of your company. We want to validate what type of architecture you're using, the conditions that people are working with, and most of all, we want to encourage collaboration, and we want to encourage you know, the workers to use this to your benefit. We think this could be a strong platform for everybody, from not just internal, but even a forward-facing public site. And Ron will talk about that today. I encourage everybody to ask questions, if you will. You should be able to, on the right side with your options there, to begin to ask questions. We will answer them as we go along, so please feel free. And without further ado, I will go ahead and introduce Ron Jones, who's basically has over 5 years of application experience in lifecycle management, 2010-13, certified in many of the programs and other party products that we use. And I'll give you just a heads up, we're going to be doing everything in 2010 here. We realize that that's probably the most popular platform, but we will talk about some of the changes for 2013, as well as if you're going into Office 365. So Ron, you want to go ahead and take over?
Yeah, first off, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ron Jones. I am a SharePoint Solutions Engineer for DataPoint. Like I said, I've been working with in the SharePoint space for over 5 years, creating lots of solutions ranging from external sites to internal, to collaboration-based platforms, records management, the whole works. So what I wanted to cover with everyone today is basically SharePoint's key features and how they really play a key role and in all of your collaborative needs, all of your solutions needs. And so what I'm going to do here is kind of start here, and I've got a demo site up that has a list of on the side menu here, a list of standard features and enterprise features, social features. And I'm kind of going to go over each of these kind of one by one. Now, I know that we're going to be covering records management in another webinar. I will not go over that today, but let me just get started on what we have. So first off, let me kind of preface this with a question. How many of you are using SharePoint 2010 in your current environment? Okay. So I think like Ed mentioned before, what we see is that most organizations, government, private, that are using SharePoint are currently in the 2010 space. Some have moved to 2013, and I'll touch a little bit on that later on in our in this webinar. So kind of first what I wanted to cover is SharePoint 2010, the SharePoint's calendar functionality. The calendar is great in SharePoint because not only can you have a place where everyone is on the same page, you can kind of put in information for an entire organizational group. You can also integrate these calendars with an Outlook, and that's the first thing I wanted to kind of touch on. So I've got a calendar here in SharePoint. This is a calendar that exists in an internal SharePoint site. It's accessible by, just for the example's sake, all the members of an organization. And if I wanted to get updates to this calendar, or if I wanted to have this calendar show up within Outlook, along with all the other things on my personal calendar, I mean, it's so simple to just go up here and click on my calendar button in the ribbon up here. And this ribbon is basically our kind of launch pad for all of SharePoint when you're inside of a SharePoint site. And I'd actually just connect this calendar to Outlook, and it'll give me a prompt. And what I'll do is allow this particular link to open up in Outlook, which will bring the calendar in. And Outlook is loading, it's thinking. And so it's asking me, do I want to connect Outlook to this calendar? And I will click yes here. And then here I see it on the list of calendars. And it's just prompting me for a password here. Okay. And now I can see that I have this SharePoint 2010 calendar here. Now, if I wanted to add an entry for today at, let's say it's due one at 5 p.m. Okay, I've just added an entry. It'll show up. Let's see. Should be showing up in here. See? So within Outlook, I mean, the great thing about this, again, is that I've just synced a external calendar that everyone else can see without having to, go in and share my personal calendar with everyone. I've entered a calendar onto the onto the SharePoint calendar from my own Outlook. And the way this is usually utilized is, say that you have a situation where you've got a project team that's working on a task. You've got a group that's working on a document. They're collaborating on a document, or really any number of things. Maybe a workspace for a weekly team meeting or something like that. And you want to kind of put reminders out there or put notices out there. This is one of the ways you'd use that. And you really don't have to come into SharePoint to do that, which is what I've just demonstrated here. So the next thing I'm going to touch on is an example of a contact list. And I know that a lot of organizations may be using, for example, an external system to keep track of their contacts. They may be using an Excel sheet. They may be using, maybe utilizing Outlook. But the one key thing with that is that this information is not all centralized. So with this, as an example here, I've got a situation where I've got a SharePoint list, and I've got a list of contacts. Now, these are just examples here. Obviously, you've got Bugs Bunny and Daffy Duck. But if I wanted to have a centralized place where everyone in my organization, everyone in my staff can see my contacts, or can see all of the organization's contacts, rather, I can build a list. I can create a list, a contact list, that captures all this information. So again, we've got a situation where we're centralizing the information the vital information for an organization. So obviously, we're capturing job title, business phone, all the key things here, which is kind of akin to a customer relations management tool. And again, SharePoint's primary focus has always been collaboration and organization-wide consolidation as far as business processes and information storage are concerned. Okay, so another thing I wanted to cover is going on the same line of interoperability. I'm going to touch on another example, which is a project task list. Now, I know a lot of organizations are using Microsoft Project. And another thing about that is that you can basically have that information in case you were working on a project in a small team and wanted to use SharePoint as a collaboration tool for that. You could actually use SharePoint to track your projects in this way. So let's say you wanted to complete a task. Obviously, anyone who's used project management software before is familiar with a view like this, where we can input information all right in SharePoint and be able to kind of track a project from inception to completion. Okay, and now is there anyone that has any questions so far?
I don't see any up here. Ron said you can proceed.
Okay, nothing so far. So what I'll do is move on to another thing that I think is really excellent about SharePoint, another practical application that, again, an organization may be using some third-party tool to accomplish or otherwise. And that is issue tracking. So, for example, if you have a help desk situation, and or just a situation where you may be in a legal office or something, and you are assigning matters, or you're just assigning tasks in a general sense. The task list is really neat, because what you can do is create a task. You can assign a priority to it, and you can assign it to members of your organization, which also gives them tasks to complete within Outlook. And this is further enhanced by workflows, which I'll talk a little bit about in a little bit. But for example, I've got a task here that was created that's assigned to me. It's an active task that says that a workflow needs to be restarted. I've got comments section here and everything. So what I'll do is just create a new one here. Just give you an example. So let's say that I've got an issue where a user may be having issues with his desktop computer, right? And this is a practical application that something like this may be used for. So let's say Joe's monitor is not working at his desk, right? So using this task list, what I can do is assign it to a staff member, and I can assign a priority to it. I can write a little description here if I wanted to, and if I have different categories based on the different types of issues that are coming up, I can note that here as well. And also, if I have a related issue, if I have another outstanding task that exists that's related to this one, I can indicate that here, and I can also assign a due date. And so what we can do here, and I'm just going to cancel this, I'm not going to add it. What we can do here is basically, as the task is worked on, so on and so forth, I can add comments here. And say this is fixed, and someone else can come back in here and as another user can come back in here and mark the task as completed if it's been completed, or change the priority, or whatever have you. And this is again tied to, this can be tied again to your Outlook, and alerts can be set up so that each time this task is updated, users will get email alerts and notifications so that they can take action for the task. And again, I'm going to touch a little bit on workflows and how that relates to this in a few. And so we'll get back to this in a second. So the next functionality that makes SharePoint such a great collaborative tool is, I think, is that document sets. And what document sets are kind of like, just look at document sets as enhanced folders. I know everyone has used a network drive, or a shared file storage where we're all putting information and documents that are related to a certain topic in some centralized location. Now, what document sets do are allow us to give context to those documents that we're storing, and give and put them in SharePoint so that you don't have to go to a shared drive to access them. And another implication of that is, for example, if you have an Excel sheet or a Word document or a PDF that references a document that's on a shared drive. I don't know if you've ever seen it in your organization or have ever seen it before. But if you have links within documents that are in your internal environment and you don't want them to break, a great idea would be to put them in SharePoint, and this is a really great tool that kind of minimizes the need to have physical storage on a drive. And I'm going to give you a little more in-depth information about document sets here. I'm going to open one up. Now, this particular document set is one that captures information about, let me maximize this so everyone can see. It captures information about sales. So say you have a sales team, or you have a group of opportunities that you're trying to keep track of, so on and so forth. So we have a document set that can capture that. So all documents that are in here have certain variables, and we'll call them metadata. Certain certain attributes. Let's call them. Let's look at them as attributes. Certain attributes about each document that decide where these are going to be categorized. So, for example, if I wanted to track sales representative, the description of whatever opportunity project, if the document is in progress, or if it's finalized, if vendors involved, I can create a document set that actually captures all of those variables for me and puts them in a centralized place. So, for example, if I've got a document here that says emergency, and I wanted to see the metadata about it. If I had filled it out, I'd see a description and all of these things filled out, and that's something that you really don't get with a kind of a shared folder. You don't really have any sense of metadata. You don't really have any sense of categorization, and you can't kind of have an at-a-glance look at what this document is really about. Okay, and that's really I think a great thing about SharePoint. Another great thing, and we can use folders in SharePoint as well, in case you didn't have the need to to use document sets, you can put folders in SharePoint as well. So if you wanted to just have a place where you can drop a lot of files that really don't have anything to do with each other, this would be a good use as well. But again, the win here is that you don't have to maintain a physical location for these files. Okay, so I'm going to go to...
Ron, I'm going to interject real quick. We got a couple of questions. I just wanted to respond to the individuals who did ask those questions. I don't know if you saw them off. The first one is, what is the foundation for project tracking lists? Is it Project Excel? Did you see that one?
You can do, there's a few different ways that you can utilize project tracking in SharePoint. One of them is definitely Excel. You can bring that in, but you can kind of transfigure that into a project tracker. Two, you can use Project Server, which integrates with SharePoint. And I'm not sure if any of you are familiar with using Project Server, but that does integrate with SharePoint. And you can also utilize SharePoint's powerful collaboration functionality, such as the tasks integrating with Outlook and the email notifications and workflow along with that. And you can also create a project, what's called a project site, which is basically a site within SharePoint, a subsite within SharePoint, which a team uses to create or to track a project, which basically includes its own calendar, its own task list, its own project tracking tool like we saw earlier. And it's just used for tracking individual projects.
Okay. Hopefully that answered your question. If not, please feel free to chime back in. The next one was about document sets. Are multiple people allowed to edit a document set, which is, I think, a pretty simple answer, and it's yes because of the versioning control. But if you'd like to elaborate on that, Ron.
Yeah. So the document sets, so the first thing is that SharePoint permissions, as far as who can edit and who cannot, we can set up SharePoint permissions, and I can touch on that in a little bit too. We can set up the SharePoint permissions so that only the desired users from the, I guess, the controller of the document or document set or any artifact in SharePoint, or SharePoint for that matter, can edit the document. We can also have the permissions set up so that certain users can only see the document and not make any changes at all. So there's different levels of permission that allow users to do different things. But if, for example, if I wanted to have a user, if I wanted to grant the user the ability to add documents to the document set but not delete, I could do that. If I wanted to grant a user the ability to add documents to a document set but not publish them, I could do that. And I'm going to get into versioning in a little bit, and a little bit from now I'll get into that and really explain how SharePoint handles versioning and how it is congruent with what you wish kind of happened in Excel and Microsoft Word. And so, and just hold tight for that, and I'll give an in-depth kind of dive in for versioning. It's coming up on my list of things to cover, and hopefully we'll answer your question at that time.
And lastly, we have a question from Susan asking, can you do metrics on the number of issues, priorities, etc.? Which I
you can. So, for example, in that issue tracking, I'll go back to it. If I wanted to, for example, calculate the average number of days between the assigned date and due date, I could do that right within SharePoint by using, for example, what's called a calculated column. I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but I can do metrics on site within the SharePoint list to do that. And also, what I can do is I can use what's called Excel services or performance point services to generate charts and graphs based on data that exists in SharePoint lists and libraries. And I'm going to touch a little bit on that later too. But yes, the short answer is yes, that you can produce metrics based on anything you have in your SharePoint environment as far as lists and libraries are concerned. So did we have any more questions before I move on to the next bit?
Not at this point.
Okay. I'm going to move on to another area of SharePoint called well, another functionality of SharePoint, filtering, and also the idea to group like documents together with views. So right here, you see that I have a library that has a huge list of documents of all types. We've got Excel, we've got PDF, we've got Microsoft Word, we've got Notepad documents. And let's say I wanted to filter them, for example, by document year. Within SharePoint lists and libraries, right on the list, I can, for example, shorten my list with a filter to include only documents that were created in 2008. And let's say that I wanted to get only Word documents. I've just created 2 filters on lists that kind of nail down what exactly I'm looking for. And it makes it very easy to kind of traverse a huge amount of information very quickly. And if I'm, I can even filter down by who modified it. Any of these columns are filterable. So that's a really powerful thing too. So, and again, going back to my document storage situation, this is not something you can really easily do within a file share, for example. I'm going to take the filters off and show you a different kind of filtering, but it's on a little bit broader scale. Views. So within document libraries and lists, we have things called views where we can set criteria to show only documents that meet certain requirements. So, for example, and there's also other rules based on that. For example, this is a view called totals, and what it does is adds a column that gives me a sum of all of my numbers in the cost column. Views are very powerful. You can do lots of different things in them. They're not just related to filtering. If I wanted to, for example, see all of my documents grouped, by, for example, document year and month, I have a view called grouping, or grouped rather. So I have a situation where I have drop down, kind of drill down views of all of my information, all of my documents based on their document year. If I drill down into 2003, obviously I have 2 months here where I have documents. I can drill down again into November, and I get only the documents I want in November. And if I wanted to, I could have another filter basically that says document type or something like that. And again, this is another great functionality, the drill down capability that you see here. And I'll go and show another view. If I wanted to, let's see, preview view. If I wanted to get a look at some of the metadata for each document, a preview of it, rather, by just looking at a list here, I could just click on one of these documents, hover over it, and see some of the metadata that's associated with each document without even having to open it. Okay. So that's a quick kind of overview of what views do. Again, they're very, very powerful and can be customized to accomplish a number of things. And one other one I'll show you before I move on is the data sheet view. It's also very powerful. If I wanted to just get a raw output of all the documents that exist in a list, or even just list items that exist in a list, I could do that with data view, and I can edit them depending on the settings. I should be able to edit each of these kind of on right within the application. And the other interesting thing about this is that I can export this information to an Excel spreadsheet, which is also very useful. And I can actually, let's see, let's get out of standard data view. In some situations, I can sync this information with Access. So again, that's another really useful list for filtering, really useful use for filtering and views. And again, I can also, and with any list or library in SharePoint, I can connect this to Outlook. So you see this here, where I can get updates when documents are added. I can get updates when documents are removed. And again, we can perform workflows and assign tasks based on the documents in the list, when they change, when when new versions are published, and that kind of thing. And that kind of segues into what I wanted to touch on, and I know someone asked a question about it earlier, versioning. So I'm going to kind of show.
Ron, I'm going to interject real quick since we were just on that version, the different data that you can view. Just have a couple real quick questions for you. Miguel asked, is this folder on a network that multiple folks could, oh, I'm sorry, we already answered that one. This is for Javier. Is it possible to show tags for your documents? Or have you done that? And
Yes,
it is possible, and I want to address that. And can it be created by any user is one question. So why don't we address that one real quick?
Okay. I'll address the second one first, and then I'll go into the first one. As far as document creation is concerned, again, that's handled by SharePoint permissions, and stakeholders within an organization that are behind a SharePoint site, or administrators, would usually be the ones that kind of dole out permissions. But the way it's set up, again, is that if I wanted to have a certain group of users not be able to create documents, I could do that. If I only wanted to have a certain amount of users or a certain group of users create documents, I could set that up too with permissions. It's very flexible, and it's very powerful in the sense that you can restrict most actions, or virtually all actions kind of by any set of users. If you don't want to have a user that has access to a site at all, you can do that as well. And to kind of rephrase it is that just because you're a part of the organization doesn't mean you can access the site, and just because you can access the site doesn't mean that you can do anything. And just because you can't do anything doesn't mean you can't digest anything, right? So there's multiple levels of user capability within SharePoint when you utilize the permissions, but that's got to be determined on an organizational level as to who does what and who sees what. Now, the first question was about tags, and I have a little section here that I can kind of go over that allows us to kind of go into that topic. So SharePoint does provide the ability to tag documents. So, for example, I know most of us have gone onto blogs and seen blog posts where you see tags at the bottom of the blog post that say, which categories they belong in. So that's kind of what you might see in SharePoint and a bunch of different places. So, for example, we've got a tag here that says vendors. And what we're doing here is tagging documents with vendors, and specifically attributes of those vendors. And again, you can make tags, and you can make tag categories to your heart's content, really. Whatever you want to categorize things as, you can do so. And while I'm here, this is something that you can kind of do on the fly, more so in SharePoint 2013 as opposed to 10. But if you have a document and you create it, you can tag it on the spot. And the other thing about it is that if you're typing in a tag, you get an auto-suggest if a tag has already been created for that particular category. Another great thing that's kind of related to tags is the rating system. If you have a document that's in SharePoint or any artifact, really, you can rate it. You can give it your own 0 to 5-star rating, and what that rating means will differ from organization to organization. But I'll get a little bit more into it when we get on the discussion board part of things and blog things. But you give a rating based on, for example, how effective you felt the document was at conveying its point, or how useful you found it. And so those are some of the social features, I'd say, that SharePoint is really good at utilizing. So tagging and ratings are a big part of SharePoint, to answer your question.
We actually have another question, if we could.
Sure.
Ron, supporting, well, we have two of them actually. Well, three from Rick. Are you promoting the use of SharePoint workspaces? Are we going to talk about that? I know we're kind of short on time with getting this done, but here's a pretty simple question. SharePoint support the use of Gmail, email, and calendaring. And if you could address that, and then I have another quick question for you.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so so the first thing is that, yeah, workspaces, I can go into workspaces a little bit. I'll talk about it a little bit. I know we touched on it with the project management, project workspace, which is basically a site that has a bunch of different artifacts that do things related to that task. So a workspace, like I just explained, is a place in SharePoint where users can perform a certain, or collaborate to perform a certain goal. You can have a documents management workspace, you can have a project workspace, you can have a meeting workspace where you have maybe a weekly meeting where you can all keep notes and collaborate on that particular meeting. Everything around that meeting is stored there. And again, the workspace is going to have a calendar where you can sync it up with Outlook, utilizing the interoperability I talked about a little bit earlier. And those workspaces are basically kind of cookie-cutter templates that SharePoint provides us that we can use that are dedicated to kind of common business practices or common business processes rather, and are available readily to be created. I can, if we have some more time, I'll try and show you a few examples of those, what it looks like to create one. But hopefully my explanation just there answered some part of your question at least. Now, the other question was about interoperability with Gmail, and I'd be assuming iCal for Mac, that kind of thing. SharePoint can be extended to send out the invitations and calendar entries for Gmail and iCal, but that's not a functionality that you'd have that's kind of straight out of the box. But I know that since most of us are integrating our Outlook with our mobile phones, since SharePoint's task lists and calendars integrate with Outlook, that automatically gives us notifications on our phone. For example, for the different SharePoint tasks that I have or reminders that I have, as long as I'm syncing that up with Outlook, and even with workflows, I don't have to sync it up. That's automatically assigned to me. That's going to show up as a notification on my phone 15 minutes before I have a meeting, for example. So technically, I mean, I think if I'm getting at what you're asking correctly, it would probably be for integration or the ability to get your notifications on the go and that kind of thing. Hopefully, I'm answering your question in the way I'm interpreting it. But in short, yes, SharePoint can be extended to do that, but out of the box, its interoperability is mostly focused on Outlook. And Ed, I think we have one last question.
We actually have two. One of them goes back to what we were talking about workspace. And Rick did send in, he was referring to the SharePoint workspace as a means of replicating documents from SharePoint to a user desktop.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I can give you a quick example of that. It's really quick to show you what it looks like. So if I wanted to see these documents on my on my desktop, and I wanted to sync that, I can go in any list and click a button in the ribbon called Open with Explorer, and what that allows me to do is see these documents in a folder structure. And let me just enter my password here, and I have it right there as if these documents exist on my desktop. And if I wanted to, I can add the current location, which is this SharePoint library, to my favorites. And anytime I open up my Explorer, I can go in and add and subtract or whatever I want to do here, and open these documents and access them without ever having to go to SharePoint. And I hope that answers your question for the workspace. There's also another, okay, SharePoint workspace is a little bit more in depth than that. There's also
you did answer the question, by the way, just to let you know, Ron. But we also, since we're kind of making sure we want to stay on with time, we have a question from Katie about RSS feeds, which I know we can address that as well.
Yeah. For example, I mean, again, the same way that we can get notifications if via email, if something is added or deleted or a new version is uploaded, I can set up an RSS feed for any particular list or library to get updates. So, for example, it's as simple. So let me just do it again so everybody can see. I'll be in a library or list. I can click on my ribbon and click the RSS feed button, and what that will do is take me to a prompt where I can get an opportunity to subscribe to an RSS feed for any particular group of information within SharePoint. And it's very straightforward to do this. I know we're running short on time, and Ed, if you don't have any more questions, I wanted to kind of cover versioning really quickly.
Yeah, I would cover versioning, and I'd also like everyone to see the public-facing websites and what can be done with that.
Okay, and I'll try and make it as quick as possible, and then with versioning, we'll get to the public-facing. So another great thing about SharePoint, as far as its functionality is concerned, for collaborative purposes, versioning. So say that we're all working on a document, and on a shared drive, right? And someone opens your document and overwrites it, with their changes. Or someone opens your document, renames it, and saves it as a different version, so you have two different versions. You don't know who did, you have no idea who did what. The thing about SharePoint is it allows us to collaborate on documents and utilize versions to keep track of the changes that are made by each personnel staff member during the process of editing. I have a document here called instructions, and what I'm going to do is show you the version history of it. So this document was created on August the 8th, 2012. We have a record of that by Jason, and the size at that point was 18.1. It was again edited by Bob on October 2012, and he left a comment that he added a date. I edited it today at 147, and the size went down to 21.2 kilobytes. And what I can do here is, for example, if I wanted to see the old version that Jason created on the 8th, the original version, I could view it. And if I decided that this is the version that should exist only, or this should be the current version, if I wanted to restore it back to the original version, I could click the restore button, and that would replace the current version with the original version. Now, I know the question that will come up is, okay, can anybody do this? No. Again, based on permissions, we can decide who can or cannot perform these functions. But, and I'm going to show you this in action a little bit so that we can see how the versioning takes place. So, for example, if I wanted to change the instructions document, I'd first open up my little menu here and click Checkout. And what this will let me do is open the document and check it out so that it's blocked from other people editing it while I'm editing it. One caveat with this is with certain Office functions, I believe they're enterprise features for SharePoint, you can have multiple users editing the document at the same time in real time. And the changes are never overwritten. For example, if I were opening the document and someone else was on it at the same time, I'd see their words pop up within the document as well. But I don't have the time, unfortunately, to show you that today, but I'll show you how the versioning works really quickly. So I'm going to open this document. I've got instructions. I've checked it out. I'm going to click it, and I'm going to open it. and I am going to edit the document. I'm going to go here, and I'm going to check in the document. And at this point, I'm prompted. And this is all prompted from SharePoint. This is not solely Word working alone. If I wanted to create a draft version, I pick minor version, which is draft 3.1. Or if I wanted to create the new major version, I'd hit 4.0 and do a major version. Now, the significance of major versus minor is that, say you have a site where you have externally facing content, or an internal site that you have content that needs to go through an approval workflow or process to get updated. We could, for example, set a workflow up so that anytime someone attempts to publish a major version of a document, it goes through a routing process through several different parties before it's published out for everyone else can see, for everyone else to see, rather. So I can do a major or minor version. And if I want to just put a draft out there and keep working on it just to say that, just to save my progress, and so people can even check in on that and look at my draft version, I can say keep the document open and checked out after checking this version. Or if I'm working on a document, I want to keep it checked out and I need to go do something, or I need to kind of hold my place and work on it a little bit later, I can do this. I'm just going to, do a major version, publish a major version. I've checked in the document, and it's probably thinking here. Okay, let's see. 1 second. Okay. I'm not sure what's happening here. Let me see. Okay, the issue was that I had the document checked out already, so I couldn't save the changes. So I'm just going to open it back up, and I'll save it right back and show you exactly what I'm talking about. Go back, and I'm going to, let's see. Okay, so I've just saved it. Let's see. Okay. Let me look at my version history again. Okay, so I've just edited it. Major version was published, and when I saved it at 147, but when I just made that edit just now at 349, 249 Central, a major version, I'm sorry, a minor version was registered. So this is the way we basically keep track of document edits. We don't lose information. We don't duplicate information. We don't have a nightmare share drive or anything. And again, it's a very powerful and a great collaborative tool, and it also satisfies the need of governance and integrity of records as far as collaborative efforts and any document repository is concerned. And I'm talking a little bit about that, but again, we're going to have another section of the series about records management, which I won't touch too much on. My final kind of examples are going to be really great SharePoint 2010 externally facing websites that have been done, and I'm going to show you. I'm going to go through a few of them and show you some some gems as far as SharePoint 2010 external websites are concerned. One is Boston College, right? And let me just show you an example. I mean, just compare and contrast. We've got a more kind of robust-looking, kind of data-driven kind of look here, and this is, it looks just like any other website that you visit, right? It's very creative. It pops. And you've got a lot of the features and functionality that you'd see on other websites. But the key thing here is that it's run by SharePoint. So you can almost bet that all the content that's published here goes through an approval process like the one I just mentioned a few minutes ago within SharePoint before it hits this live page. Okay, and same thing, Ferrari. This is a SharePoint site, SharePoint 2010. And all of this is done in in SharePoint. Bahrain, their official website is done in SharePoint 2010 as well. And this is really kind of to give you some examples of how flexible the system is from an external standpoint. Fiat, again another SharePoint 2010 site. I'll go to Trinity College, Women's College, not Women's College, Trinity College. I'm getting mixed up with Trinity DC, excuse me. But another SharePoint 2010 website. So again, it's a very versatile tool that not only helps organizations streamline processes and collaborate in a much more efficient way than what they may have been doing in the past, or even if you want to kind of digitize or automate a few processes that involve a lot of third-party tools, SharePoint usually satisfies the need of bringing those things together into one kind of cohesive piece. And also, you can make external websites with it, with those back-end content management and workflow processes, so that you can make publishing a snap. You can make the management of your content on your external site a snap. So I think I'm going to conclude. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to interject. We're kind of getting short on time, and I think Ron did a great job. I appreciate it. I just want to let everybody know we're actually doing some engagements right now with some agencies within the state of Texas. We're working to actually starting a new project today with a university who's going to be using the SharePoint to essentially have students check their schedules and add and drop classes, and workflows are included with that for approvals to add and drop those classes. So there's a tremendous amount of versatility within SharePoint. We have another agency who's using it for an outward-facing site for information, wiki pages essentially, allowing people to see all the data that's being posted on certain projects, and then allowing them to make comments on that as well. So if anybody has any questions before we finish, please feel free. If you want to pop back the screen over to me again, Ron, I'd appreciate it.
Sure.
I can certainly provide information to everybody regarding our contract numbers, the type of information that we can help you with. If you need to, oops, sorry about